Well, it looks like Rachel McAdams has now entered the greatest mom of all time that everybody wants to have era of her career, picking up, sort of where Jennifer Garner left off. And she does so with an adaptation of a 50-year-old classic. Let's talk about Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to my spoiler-free review for the new film, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. This is in theaters right now, and it is, of course, the adaptation of one of the most popular young adult books of all time by the great Judy Blume. Very, very successful, and she's been at it for a long, long time. Most of these books were already out when I was a kid. I'm not even quite 50 years old. This book is 52 years old, but still as relevant today as it was back then. And a lot of the Judy Blume stuff is. In fact, Time Magazine just named her this year one of the most 100 influential people. So love to see that she's still so relevant. She does have a small cameo in this movie, so you can try and spot her if you watch it. But before we launch into the specifics of my thoughts here with this movie and the plot and all of that, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. We've got great movie and TV reviews all the time on the channel. I try to post something new just about every day for you. And please consider subscribing down below. Would love to have you aboard there, or like this video, comment on it, share it. All that stuff does help the channel out. I also have the Facebook group and the Twitter. Both those links are in the description below. I don't really talk about those enough on the channel, but I do have those. I post there, when I release new stuff as well. So, all right, so let's talk about Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. I'll be up front. This is not a book that I read. I feel like this is a little bit more, maybe a lot more, of a more, female-centric story, female coming-of-age stuff. Watching it now, I do think that, boys and girls can certainly both get some things out of this, but it does focus, if you know anything about the book, the only thing I really knew about it was it focuses on this girl, Margaret, and her first period. So obviously that's geared a little bit more towards, the female set, but while I was watching it, I thought, I think my one nephew who was, well, I have a couple nephews in this age range, but, like 11, 12, I think they might actually get a lot of, enjoyment and maybe not information specifically, but, I think they may get something out of it as well. That's sort of, a lot of kids, boys and girls, are going through a lot of the same stuff at this age, and that kind of thing. But anyway, I never read the book growing up. I guess I felt like it was maybe geared more towards the opposite gender. I did read a lot of other Judy Blume stuff, but this is one that sort of escaped me. But obviously, it is so very famous, and kids are still reading it now. It took a while to get this one to the big screen. Like I mentioned, 52 years ago was the book, but eventually Judy Blume found the partner that she wanted to do this as a movie with, and that's Lionsgate, who has done really, I mean, my favorite movie so far this year is probably John Wick Chapter 4. That's Lionsgate. So they're on a hot streak there because this is another really, really good one. And we'll get into that. But Rachel McAdams plays Margaret's mother. And I mentioned up top, this is her foray kind of into the mother roles that Jennifer Garner has been giving us for the last 15 years to absolute perfection, from The Odd Life of Timothy Green to Love, Simon, and, on and on. She's done a whole handful of them. And this is, I think, McAdams' first. But she is such a competent actress. She can do all genres. Game Night is a hilarious movie. She doesn't do enough comedies, I don't think, but she's done the romance thing. She's done obviously a lot of drama stuff too, but even entering into the sci-fi and superhero world with the Doctor Strange movies. So cool to see her playing this very down-to-earth mother person, since her last movie was that Doctor Strange Part 2. But Kathy Bates is here as well as Margaret's grandmother. We have Benny Safdie from the Safdie brothers, who are maybe known more, or definitely known, I guess, more for their directing and writing and stuff, including Uncut Gems. But we did see this guy in Licorice Pizza as well, so he does a little bit of acting too. But the title character, Margaret, well, she is Abby Ryder Forston, who I was not super familiar with. I have seen her in a few things. She was in the TV show Transparent, and she was also, you may recognize her the most from being Scott Lang's daughter in the first two Ant-Man movies. So obviously, big successes there. Interesting that her and McAdams both part of sort of offshoots of the Marvel Universe. But she is amazing in this movie. Let's just cut to the chase. This is the best movie I've seen so far this year. So let's get to all of the positives, and there are a ton of them. But let's talk about the acting first. I think that's probably the easiest. McAdams obviously great. We know that. Kathy Bates great. I will say she's not giving us anything that we have not seen before. She's the hip grandmother for sure, and the very loving and doting grandmother. The basic story, without really giving spoilers, is that this family is moving from New York to New Jersey when Margaret is like 12 years old, I believe, in this movie. And obviously, that is a huge change for somebody that's about to already go through a bunch of different changes with that and get a whole new set of friends and X, Y, and Z, and moving away from the only home she's ever known and, the only grandparent really that she knows. So that's, the crux of the movie. But then we see, obviously, as we go on, how she's adjusting with making friends and, noticing boys and, when am I going to start developing in my chest area? When am I going to get my first period and stuff like that? And we see not just things from her perspective, but one thing, and I assume the book does this too, but maybe I don't know. But it also focuses so well on the mother character, Rachel McAdams. Oh my God, she's so good in this movie. Not that I was surprised because, like I said, she's good in everything. But the story really focuses a lot on her character as well, and a lot of the changes that she's going through now. She's going to be a stay-at-home mom, and she's not going to be able to teach these art classes anymore, and she is trying to throw herself into the PTA kind of stuff and fit in there. So it's like both generations they're trying to fit in. And then we have on top of that the Kathy Bates character, the grandmother. She is also now having to deal with a bunch of changes. Her loving son and her granddaughter are moving on away, and she's not going to be as close with them, and she is lonely as well. So it's like it really is a multi-generational story, which is, I think, why it's so important to watch this movie as a family. I think there's a lot to get out of it, whether you have boys or girls. I think there's a lot to sort of ruminate on with this movie. So it takes place in the 70s. They did not sort of update the era that it's in. And I think that was probably a smart choice, because even though there's no, social media or cell phones or anything, I think kids can still relate to those feelings, and those feelings of not just, insecurity or whatever, but family problems and friendship problems and all of that. And it's why, even though I didn't grow up in the 60s, I really, clung to and identified with the Wonder Years when that was on. Or Freaks and Geeks is another one, that takes place in 1980 at a high school. I wasn't in high school till the 90s, but I related to all that because a lot of these feelings are so universal. And it's something I think that Judy Blume, understands in spades. And we see that from the page to the screen very, very well. This was directed, by the way, by Kelly Freeman Craig. And her other directorial effort was The Edge of 17, which is one of the best coming-of-age movies, probably in the last 5 or 10 years, right up there, with some of the John Hughes classics. And I just loved that movie. So it's no surprise to me that even though this is for the slightly younger set, Edge of 17. Obviously, she was, in high school, and I think she might have been a senior. Here we're dealing with kids, their final year really of elementary school before moving into the junior high. Uh, it's no surprise to me that she does it effortlessly because she brought all of those sort of emotions and comedy. This movie is funny too. It's not maybe, knee slappingly funny or rolling in the aisles funny, but it's definitely like that slice of life kind of funny. And there's definitely some good moments in this movie of comedy. But Edge of 17 probably had a few more. But this is one of these movies that really, I don't want to put too fine a point on it. I love this movie. Obviously, you're getting that vibe, but this is one of those movies that sort of comes around only once every, many years. In fact, the last movie I think tackling, kids of this age and what they're kind of going through and everything. Um, well, there's been a few, I guess, lately. Eighth grade was certainly one. I think that's slightly in the older range, but I'm thinking of like the fifth grade, sixth grade kind of stuff. Like the Diary of a Wimpy Kid movie, the first one, I thought was great. And there's, a book adaptation again. But in the 90s, we had a handful of them. Now and Then comes to mind. Man in the Moon with Reese Witherspoon comes to mind. So there's a few in that vein, but very few really, because I think so many coming of age movies focuses on sort of the post puberty set, seventh, eighth grade, and high school, of course, if you're John Hughes or Edge of 17 or a lot of those. Perks of Being a Wallflower, another great example. But anyway, look, I've rambled on long enough about how great this movie is. The only thing I could really say in the negative is it does seem a little bit episodic, with what it's trying to do, but I don't think that's necessarily that much of a negative. That's the only thing I could say that's a negative about it. But it also deals with really interesting issues with religion, which I don't know why I didn't really think about that, because it's called Are You Their God? It's Me, Margaret. But I guess I just assumed that this person believed in God and prayed regularly and all of this stuff. But at the beginning of the movie, we find out it's actually the first time really she's spoken to God, and then we learn as the movie goes on sort of why that is. And her sort of different family backgrounds. I think this movie hits on every level, and I know that I do love a coming of age movie when it's done well, and this certainly is. So, okay, maybe you're a little biased, Dan. You love these kind of movies. Okay, maybe. But it's got a 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's got an 86, I think, or something like that on Metacritic. So this is a movie enjoyed by most, if not just about everyone. I give Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, an A plus. I think this is one of the great movies of 2023, and hopefully, I know it's not going to get any awards love, I know that, but hopefully this is one that sort of people go back to over and over through the years and sort of take note, okay, let's show this to our kids as the generations go, because it is that good, just like the book. Which again I haven't read, but it's one that has spanned the generation. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.